Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about 2 soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games they come from, without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first for our 2 games this week is 2004's Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, the papercraft RPG in the Mushroom Kingdom that is fondly remembered for being the last of its kind in its series.
After that, it's 2015's Until Dawn, an interactive horror film where the player makes all the decisions, including the ones that decide who lives and who dies.
So I think we decided that the theme this week for the 2 games, and it's a stretch, don't get me wrong, is dark secrets. What is, the secret on the mountain in Until Dawn? What is the secret behind the Thousand-Year Door in the Paper Mario sequel? You could go like spooks. There are some, spookly figures in this game, but you do have one happy RPG versus one very grim game to play around Halloween time. Joe, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of actually super excited to talk about these 2 games because I think this is the first time in a little while that we're talking about 2 games that both of us have played. It's been a long while since that happened.
That is true.
Which in a way is a little bit less interesting for us because we don't get to learn about a new game, but also it's more interesting because we both get to talk about the game.
Yeah, we have insight on both sides. So, pick your poison, pick whatever you like. This will be certainly one great episode this week, I think. So let's get in with talking about Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. I mean, my goodness, when you talk about games that are sneaky picks on like people's top 5s of all time, I think this is one of them.
Mm-hmm. This is a very beloved game.
A lot of people love this one. But to begin talking about Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, we need to start with the original Paper Mario. This was a game that was developed as Super Mario RPG 2. So then I guess we even have to go back to Super Mario RPG, which is, the Nintendo and Square collaboration of a game with turn-based combat and similar mechanics. But Super Mario RPG 2 was originally planned for the Nintendo 64 DD, the disk drive. And of course, it's the failed project that was, the game at least, was originally shown for the first time at Nintendo Space World 97. So the game changed focus after it being, kind of refocused for the Nintendo 64. And Japan knew Paper Mario as Mario Story. So Mario Story, released there in August 2000. North America would get the game Paper Mario in February 2001, so about 6 months later. Now, a sequel to Paper Mario, Mario Story, was revealed at GDC 2003. And so, of course, it was known then as Mario Story 2 and Paper Mario 2, respectively. In the subsequent year, a section of the game with Hooktail Castle and the first playable Bowser section that was on display at E3 2004. So, the game we know as Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door was not Mario Story 2 ultimately in Japan, though it released there on July 22nd, 2004 as Paper Mario RPG. So, we know it as Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, released on October 11th, 2004. So, only a handful of months apart. I mean, like 3 months or so. It's pretty good, all things considered, for 2004.
Not bad for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Europe and Australia got the games on November 12th and 18th, respectively, of 2004. This is a game that is developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo. Intelligent Systems, we've talked about them before, for Fire Emblem. So, well-versed in RPG making. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, at its core, it's a side-scrolling role-playing game with 3D environments, but these paper-stylized 2D characters. So in a way, it's really, 2.5D. Like, you're primarily moving side to side, but there's some depth to the levels. Now, Mario gathers an assortment of partners in his party that support him with world exploration and turn-based combat. It's a pretty fun but lighthearted RPG. A lot of people point to the difficulty, at least of the very first Paper Mario, and it's like, yeah, it's a pretty simple RPG, but it's kind of meant to get you into the genre overall. The story for Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. It involves Princess Peach going on vacation because she's deserves to do that every now and then. But she goes to the town of Rogueport, which is a town that was built on the site of a cataclysmic event, and she discovers a map there that leads to the fabled secret treasure of Rogueport. So Peach asks for Mario's help to hunt for this treasure, because what else is Mario doing? But surprise! Princess Peach gets kidnapped, so Mario's adventure is just beginning. Can Mario save Peach with the help of the friends he meets on this journey? Can he collect 7 crystal stars before the nefarious X-Nauts do? And just what is the treasure of Rogueport, which is locked behind the mystical Thousand-Year Door in the old town's ruins? So, Joe, here's where I ask you, what are your experiences with Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door?
I played most of the game while dog-sitting like 3 or 4 years ago. Hit the final boss. It was a brick wall. Couldn't beat it. I will be going back to it hopefully within the next couple of years, because we will be playing it for Smasterpieces. It's the game for Piranha Plant. So that's... Matt has had the same problem with the final boss. I believe you have had the same problem with the final boss.
Sure did.
So Matt and I take it as a vendetta of, no, this time she's going down. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I feel like I had a very similar experience, even up to the time when I played the game. It probably was around the same time, maybe about 3-4 years ago. And you're right. I mean, it's a very enjoyable game overall. Had a great time with it. It's probably one you can get through in about 20 to 25 hours. Good progression, great characters, great writing, a lot of text in that story. From chapter to chapter, the game progresses and you gain your skills and you feel like you're growing. And then that second half of that final boss, what a difficulty spike. It's unreal. I mean, I'm sure you could, go and grind some more and kind of retinker your splits between your HP, your flower power, your badge points. But that was at a time where, YouTube cutscenes were well in practice of being uploaded to YouTube. So it was much easier to say, I don't want to go through the unskippable cutscene again. I'd like to see the end of the game, though, and I don't need the satisfaction of, needing to beat it necessarily. So yeah, I had a very similar experience, I think, with you.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The joke that I like to say is, man, it sure is weird that the game ends on that Bowser fight, but I'm coming for you. I'm coming for that final boss. It's gonna happen this time.
I don't know if I will do the same, but I will send you my energy in the same way that all the townsfolk do, like a spirit bomb, in hopes for your Smasterpieces run eventually.
I'll need it.
So, some interesting notes about the game itself. Mario can recruit different party members, of course, throughout the different chapters. There's Goombella the Goomba, Koops the Koopa, Madame Flurry the Wind Spirit, a Yoshi Kid who can be one of 7 colors. It's based on how long you have the egg before it hatches. It cycles every 20 minutes, what the different colors can be, and it's named by the player. You have Vivian the Shadow Siren, Admiral Bobbery the Babam, and Miss Mouse the Squeak. A couple quick questions then here, Joe. Who is your favorite party member?
Vivian with a bullet.
Oh, Vivian, without a doubt.
It's Vivian.
I don't know how it can be anyone, but if you have your choices out there, that's fine. But it's definitely Vivian. Great character, great arc, and just great abilities in battle overall. So that certainly helps.
I agree. There's no other choice for me. A close runner-up might be Coops. I don't know. Nobody's gonna be as good as Vivian.
I liked the Yoshi kid. I liked Yoshi, good abilities, whether it's, hovering over and then dropping multiple times on enemies. Mm-hmm. And, he calls you the Great Gonzalez, except at certain poignant moments when he calls you Mario. Speaking of Yoshi, of course, mentioned he's different colors. And I never knew what the whole thing was, but looking into it for this game, every few minutes, and, for certain colors, it's there's a 1 minute opening, but every 20 minutes after you get the egg for the first time, that cutscene ends and you're walking around with that egg. Every 20 minutes, the 7 cycles of colors resets. But I had an orange Yoshi on my playthrough, which I guess is, the 6 to 9 minute window. If you had a black Yoshi or a white / light blue, whatever it is, Yoshi, those are each a minute a piece in the last couple minutes of that cycle. So it's just interesting to see how it breaks down. Of course, it's within, when you get the first few minutes, it's the traditional green. I think it's green, red, then orange, then maybe pink. What was your color, Yoshi?
It was either green or red, but I don't fully remember. I think it was red. I seem to remember it being red.
Okay. So yeah, that is a thing, and you can name it whatever you want it to. There's no restrictions there. But do note how I mentioned that you can recruit Miss Mouse. And again, this was something that I had no idea, because I sure didn't.
I also didn't know this.
I sure did not recruit Miss Mouse in my game. Certainly, I think it would have taken a guide or maybe some of that schoolyard conversation to know that this was a thing. Or maybe just a completion mindset. After the 4th chapter in Twilight Town, which, that was the name of that town, wasn't it? That sure
was.
Sure is interesting, huh? Kingdom Hearts fans there. A side quest appears on the job board in East Rogueport. And so it's the Elusive Badge side quest, and who else is offering it but Miss Mouse? You have to basically backtrack to Hooktail Castle and use Flurry's wind ability. Miss Mouse gives this really vague hint or whatever, but you find this rare badge, you bring it back to her, and she's like, oh, well, maybe I gotta tag along to help you find other rare things. And so she's the item finder, essentially. She helps you find hidden items in the world, because there are 15 hidden blocks throughout the world, and based on her level of excitement, you can tell when something is close, when she is, front and center in your party. So, yeah, I had no idea that she was a secret character or an optional character, as it were, but she sure is. Maybe she would have helped in that final boss battle. I don't know. So, Mario being a Paper Mario game, and with the improved power and graphics of the GameCube, Mario has paper powers in this game, where he folds himself up like paper and can interact with the world in different ways, go through secret passages, traverse long gaps. There's plane mode, where he folds himself up into a paper plane and you can kind of ride the wind to cross a gap. There's paper mode, where you kind of sidle up into a very narrow thing to squeeze in between gaps. Just kind of make yourself very narrow to kind of walk through that world a little bit differently. You have tube mode, where you roll yourself up into a tube and kind of roll under gaps in the world, different walls here and there. And then also boat mode, which is really close to the end of the game. We have to cross, gaps of water. But it's pretty obvious when you have to activate these modes. But it's just adds to the paper aesthetic. And as I mentioned slightly earlier, you can play as Peach and Bowser in certain set sections of the game. Peach has these story interludes that involve her interactions with the TEC computer. Certainly some different conversations there. TEC learns how to love, and Peach gets naked in the shower because that's a thing.
Yeah, it sure is.
Helping, Peach communicate back to Mario wherever he is. And it's like, I'm still okay. The computer is helping me as I'm kidnapped here by the X-Nauts. And then Bowser's a whole other meta side of things where he's one step behind Mario. He wants to find the crystal stars, whereas Bowser was like the main antagonist in Paper Mario. He's kind of comedy relief here. Again, one step behind, but he goes through these traditional Mario platforming levels. But he has this big size and he has fire breath, and so he can play it very differently than the Jumpman plumber can do so.
I absolutely love the Bowser sections because the whole joke is like, he's not the villain of this game, but he wants to be. He's trying to be.
He so wants to be. And then there's also Kammy Koopa alongside him. I guess Kammy Koopa's last appearance in the Mario series before her role was kind of taken over by Kamek. So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Kammy Koopa was a pretty good character. So just a great game overall, reviewed rather highly with a Metacritic average of 87. Some praise points in the reviews mentioned the combat system, just kind of refining it even more from Paper Mario. You have the paper theme overall, and they praise the soundtrack as game music at its finest, which I can't help but agree. Some criticisms include the amount of text in-game, a perceived limited visual upgrade from Paper Mario, like they didn't do enough of a leap forward, but if you have a very stylized, sort of visual look,
what were they supposed to do?
I guess there's only so much they could have done. And I guess there was a review that mentioned the lack of voice acting, which I think that would have made the game a certainly worse experience than what it was.
For a Mario game?
A Mario RPG game?
What?
So I don't know about that one. So I find it odd that amongst all the 9 out of 10s average, an average of 87, Game Informer's, oddly enough, marked the game as a 6.75 out of 10, which is very interesting. I don't think I would have agreed with that. It was certainly one of the more critical scores. But I think Eurogamer's 9 out of 10 score had probably one of the best quotes, saying that the game is, quote, something closer to Finding Nemo than Final Fantasy, which is very much a compliment. And yeah, I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's more of a lighthearted sort of fare. It's more focused on like trying to make you laugh and have a good time than like, you gotta go save the world from this world-ending threat. Even though it is about you gotta go save the world from this world-ending threat, it definitely has a different feel from your average JRPG.
Absolutely. And it's the style, it's the writing, it's all things considered. The game sold about 409,000 copies in Japan and 1.23 million in North America at last countings, wherever that was. And it wasn't a time where, there were game awards handed out all over the place, but it notably won Role-Playing Game of the Year at the 2005 Interactive Achievement Awards. I think when we look back on the legacy of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, we, and many, many other people, look back on this game as the last true Paper Mario game. Certainly there was 2007's Super Paper Mario on the Wii, and it has its fans. I think deservedly so. I think that's a good game. You do have a great story going along with that one, but it also had an increased reliance of platforming that kind of started to show a change in direction a little bit. That was the game that showed like the whole alternate point of view, like the first person view for Mario, and you found secrets that way. And so, it was a little different, but then it was 2012's Paper Mario Sticker Star on 3DS. That was really the true departure of the vision from the first two games with its stickers in battle gameplay. And yeah, you had 2016's Color Splash on Wii U in it. It was more of a continuation of Sticker Star's gameplay, though, with cards and whatnot. But that really kind of cemented that, boy, those days of the Thousand Year Door are unfortunately long forgotten.
There's a current movement on the internet. I don't think it's going to work, unfortunately, but I respect the hell out of the people doing it to get it remastered for the Switch. That would be great. They should do that. Don't think they will, though.
And that's all tied back to, rumors that it was going to happen on 3DS, and just was not so, unfortunately. But this is a game that if you ever get the chance at a AGDQ, SGDQ, whatever have you, this is a great game to watch a speedrun of. I mean, Flavio runs, need we say more? Just amazing. Where you take the character from that Cortez world, the pirate world, and just kind of make him tag along with you throughout the rest of the game. Just fantastic. So good. When it comes to the soundtrack for Paper Mario, The 1,000-Year Door, we mentioned this composer a few episodes ago in Fire Emblem Awakening. We're talking about Yuka Tsujiyoko. Yuka Tsujiyoko, she is a prominent member of the Intelligent Systems composition team. She is born on March 21st. No year was given online, but March 21st is her birthday. She was born originally as Yuka Bamba, Bamba being her maiden name, born in Uji in the Kyoto prefecture in Japan. Now, Yuka Tsujiyoko, she studied piano in preschool, and she created her first original composition as an assignment for a high school music class. She attended Osaka Electronic Communications Junior College, where she majored in electronic engineering, a pretty good field to fall back on just in case. And she ended up working as a computer programmer for a software company out of school before joining Intelligent Systems in 1990. Now, when we're talking about mentors or people who inspire her, we've mentioned Hirokazu Hip Tanaka in the past, and Hip Tanaka was a mentor of hers as they worked on the very first Fire Emblem game together. She was also inspired by American jazz guitarist and composer Pat Metheny. I guess she's also a big Stephen King fan, whether it was like the books or movies like Carrie that are based on his works. Big Stephen King fan, which very, very interesting. A thought she had on making music for games. She says, quote, "There are pictures, stories, and the maker's thoughts in the production of games, and there is the feeling that people want to express using sound. It's interesting when they are expressed by using sounds. Each person feels it in different ways." But she also says of herself, quote, "I have a firm belief and a good imagination, but I am a haphazard and rough person." Which I guess that's one way of describing yourself. So when it comes to her discography, Yuka Tsujiyoko, big, as we mentioned in that Fire Emblem Awakening episode, big in the original Fire Emblem games. I mean, composing from the very first Fire Emblem all the way up to Binding Blade, and then from Sacred Stones onward, even through Three Houses, which just released recently. She's the sound supervisor for those games. So, still working. I guess she retired from Intelligent Systems after, I think, Paper Mario, but still keeps getting brought back for work, through freelance or what have you, just not employed directly through the company. She did compose Paper Mario and The 1,000-Year Door as well as part of different teams. Also composed Battle Clash and Metal Combat Falcon's Revenge, which I guess are both Super Scope games. They're kind of sequels of each other. Contributed a song for Tetris Attack on Game Boy, and also composed Pokemon Picross, which was several years ago, but pretty recently. When we talk about if the composers contributed to arrangements in the Super Smash Bros. Series, Yuka Tsujiyoko has done that. In Brawl, she contributed to the arrangement for Wild Pokemon Battle from Diamond and Pearl, as well as Preparing to Advance from Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. On Smash for Wii U, she contributed to Route 23 from Pokemon Black and White 2, and Meeting Theme Series Medley from Fire Emblem. And in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Yuka Tsujiyoko contributed to Yuyuki Medley from Yuyuki.
Yeah.
As well as Edge of Adversity from Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. So, a good smattering of tracks there.
All right, that Yuyuki medley is really good. I've never played Yuyuki and likely never will, but that song is extremely good.
Yay, arrangements. Not much information on the sort of background history for the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door soundtrack. I mean, thanks, Nintendo, but, I guess that is how it is sometimes with the company keeping secret, and a game that's 15 years old at this point. But some of the gist of the background is that the Paper Mario games in general are trying to keep the spirit of Koji Kondo's original work, but just add some comical and lively twists. And Tsujiyoko was certainly helped by different members of the teams. There was, one other composer for Paper Mario, but for this game, she was assisted by Yoshito Hirano and Saki Haruyama. There doesn't seem to be an official release of this soundtrack, though, so it's very difficult to kind of narrow down who did what. And so if you're watching the video version of this episode, I'm going to throw in et al. And others in addition to Yuka Tsujiyoko's name for the credits of these Paper Mario songs, because I don't know who did what. So let's keep that in mind as we get into the 5 critical tracks for the game. And I think we have to start with main theme. I mean, my goodness, what a title screen theme. There's a fanfare at the beginning, which we didn't include in the clip here, but oddly enough, fun fact, that fanfare is different in the Japanese and the English versions. I found out it sounds about the same, but the localized North American versions of the game, like they kind of streamline the melody a little bit more. It kind of wavers a little bit more in the Japanese version. So I think, there's wikis out there that have the old version. It's very interesting there. But once the main melody gets going, like that's the same. And it really hits you in the face with this unabashed positive energy. All these bouncy instruments and strings, it really gives you a good vibe and a sense of the kind of sound that this soundtrack will be going for.
When I was playing the game, there were points where I'd go to make dinner or something before I'd jump back in. And I just leave this title screen just open in the background and just have this song playing for 30 minutes at a time. It's so good. It's so nice to listen to. It's the first song I ever heard from this game, not just because it's on the title screen, but because back in the day, before I had played Thousand Year Door, my roommate and I ran a show called RTM Radio, and during our first episode, we did our favorite video game soundtracks, and one of his was Thousand Year Door, and this was the song he picked to represent it. And so that's the first time I heard this song. It's just so good.
It really does a number on you, and it's very infectious with all of that energy. Second track we have to get to, though, on the Critical 5, Rogueport. Or oddly enough, as I saw in different soundtracks throughout the years for a while, Rockport, as they changed the G to a Q. And I'm like, oh, we are French now. But no, it is Rogueport. It's a city that has a bit of a dingy side to it. The clip here certainly has this positive open energy to it. I mean, Rogueport is yours to explore, going find all of its secrets. It's wide open. It is there for you, Mario. Come visit our happy town. But later in the track, it gets this bit of a grunge to its instruments, and it kind of shows you that a town called Rogueport is probably not all that it seems, and maybe it has a darker side to it. But it's one that you're going to be going throughout Rogueport for a lot of the game, kind of finding where to go to next and taking on different side quests and all that. So you become very familiar with this song.
And it's a very good song to become very familiar with. I don't remember getting tired of it by the end, which says something when you've got a hub level like this. Because you're right, you go to Rogueport a lot. You spend a lot of the damn game in that town. And I just like that it's got this very adventurous feeling to it. You're right with the explore and find all its secrets. And I think the part that always gets me the most is the fact that, did you make Mario jump in rhythm to this song?
Sure.
All the time. Constantly.
I was very torn between, having this one or the underground, like the Rogueport sewers, with like the different arpeggios of the synths. It's another very catchy tune.
Oh, I think it's this one though. It has to be this one. This is the more well-known one.
Yeah. So like ultimately I went with this one, but I got to give a shout out at least to the underground Rogueport section, because it's also so very good.
And it made it into Smash as part of a medley, but it made it into Smash.
Absolutely. All the more reason. But when you're talking about songs that you better get used to hearing and you better get used to loving, we got to talk about Battle Theme. Because man, oh man, you are hearing this normal battle track a lot. a lot. But it is so great.
I talked about this last week with Chrono Trigger. When you have a game like this, that is this long, and you only have one battle theme, it better be good and catchy, because I'm going to be hearing it a lot, all the time. And this definitely succeeds in that. It's got this nice bouncy energy. Like a lot of the soundtrack has this nice bouncy energy to it. And I agree that this one is on the catchier side. And again, I don't think I ever got tired of it, which is an accomplishment.
Yeah, the instruments, however it does just enough to cut through all the noise of the battle to really just hit you with that big happy energy. I think as far as the melody goes, it like does just enough with the Super Mario Brothers World 1-1 theme, like the overworld theme there. Just, to make it different, but still remind you like this is a Mario game. But yeah, it's all these punchy, poppy instruments that really just make it sound so fresh. And I think it's one of the best examples in this game where, with the MIDIs that were available on GameCube at the time, this game did so much with them and used so many. And it's just a nice, wide, diverse range of sounds for this one. Number 4 on the critical track. I had to put this one here. We're talking about Rock Hawk Rock.
Let's get to it!
This is the special battle theme used when you're facing against Rock Hawk. I think if there's one level that really stands out in this game that a lot of people remember, it may have slowed the pacing down a little bit, but when you're talking about all of the wrestling energy and just the machismo going back and forth and the different types of battles therein, I think the Glitz Pit is one that a lot of people remember if they played enough of the game. It's certainly one of the better chapters. It's where you meet that Yoshi that we mentioned earlier. But Rockhawk's this dude, big, beefy yellow bird with this kind of, mohawk. He's just this great antagonist for a Glitz Pit for the great Gonzalez to go up against. As far as the tune itself, I think it's kind of like the opposite of these bright and poppy, but like it's going to that grungy guitar. It's got some driving drums and this synth going to it. Kind of makes it sound a little muddy, but you're in the thick of it with this battle. And so it shows that diversity. It's a lot of people's favorites, not only just the part of the game, the battle, but also this song. A lot of people love this song.
I think my favorite bit of the song, my favorite touch is the crowd sound, because every once in a while in the song you hear the yeah, like people are cheering in the background for Rockhawk. It's so good. Our friend Matt, who hosts Smasher Pieces alongside me, apparently has a save file specifically right before the Glitz Pit, just so whenever he wants, he can go play the Glitz Pit chapter again.
Yeah.
People love the Glitz Pit. I don't share that extreme love, but it is definitely a very, very, very good part of the game.
I think I'm right there with you. It's good. I'd probably prefer some other moments of the game, though.
I prefer the train mystery.
Oh, man, me too. You and me, we're two peas, I tell you what. How could we not have recruited the penguin? Pennington? Is that his name?
I don't remember, but he's the best. He's the best detective in the world.
It is Pennington.
Yes.
Oh, he's the greatest, man. I was really bummed when we couldn't recruit him. That really sucks. One moment of the game that we do not like, though, but we gotta give a shout out to its soundtrack moment, the final battle. This part of the game sucks. We've gone over this. It's no fun. Phase 2 of this fight after the long, unskippable cutscene. But man, what an excellent final boss theme against the Shadow Queen. I mean, my goodness. Spooky form for a Shadow Queen. All those hands coming out of the ground. But Joe, you and me, we heard this quite a lot as we were trying multiple times to beat this section of the game, but so many instruments at play here just creates this oppressive yet very exciting sound. I'm not gonna rank it on best final boss tracks or whatever, but it's in the consideration for maybe top 20, I'd say.
I consider it very impressive that, like you said, it has that exciting sound. It keeps that bouncy, happy feeling sort of, while also being the most dire piece in the game, which is really weird. And it's actually extremely impressive that she kept that sort of balance while writing this piece. It's so good.
When it comes to the cutting room floor, you have a track here on the cutting room floor. Let me hear about it.
I am a very big fan of the Dupless battle theme. It's just this weird, trippy, sort of creepy theme when you fight the character Dupless, who is a guy in a sheet dressed as a ghost. Is that a sheet or his body? I don't know. Who knows? But the point is, he steals Mario's body at some point. And it's a really weird part of the game. Twilight Town, I think, is my least favorite chapter.
Yeah, a lot of backtracking back and forth there.
There's just so much. The whole chapter is just going from one end of the map to the other over and over and over again. It's not great. But like, you also, that's the chapter where you get Vivian. So how bad could it be? But the dupless battle theme has always really stood out to me, especially, it's not in the clip, but I do want to give a shout out to a specific part where you just hear like this. I think the clip is the better part of the song, but I enjoy the part of the song where you just hear this weird vocal part, just la 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 la, and it just sounds creepy and weird. I don't know. I just really like this song.
I think this was like cutting room floor of the cutting room floor for me. That would have been like the next one on the list. So I'm glad you included it, certainly. Just a great melody if you think about it, with like it's perfect for this weird kooky battle. It's so fantastic. I'm going to give a couple tracks here that are close to the end game. Very memorable tracks for me, but just didn't make it on some of these great tracks in the Critical 5. I mean, my goodness. So we'll start with X-Naut Fortress. I mean, boy, you sure are in a near end game level here. You're storming the X-Naut base. You've got this catchy as hell electronic groove, just as the world theme, the thumping bass, these high-pitched 16th notes that are just going back and forth and creating this, again, it's this bounce, it's this energy that is throughout the whole game, but you're going to get your head bopping to this one. Certainly very, very enjoyable.
Oh yeah, head bopping is a good description of it. I remember that's the only part of this part of the game I enjoy. It has one of the most annoying enemies in the game, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, this song is a jam.
Mm-hmm. A jam also like Bowser Battle.
The final boss theme of Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door.
Yes, as we say, the final boss theme. Good thing that it's also a very good one. You have these elements that are very modern Bowser in a way. Like, you get those grungy guitars, you get the percussion at work, you get some of the synths, of course, because of this game. But it makes him formidable, and at the same time, there's kind of a comic side to it. There's a goofy side to it. And it's a formidable fight, to be sure. But it's playing more of that modern Bowser as opposed to, say, the Super Mario 64 Bowser theme. It's a very different sound. Shouts out to just like the great MIDI work again at play here, especially the timpani. I mean, my goodness, like you'd be hard pressed to think that's a MIDI timpani at work as opposed to a real one just banging at it. So, great song, absolutely. So, what will I never forget about Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door? Kind of, as I said at the top, like, it was one of the games that kind of really helped reinforce to me, like, you don't have to beat every game. Like, you're getting to be an adult now. It's okay to value your time. And it's okay to know when there's kind of a lost cause here. You could sink many more hours to grind and retool your stats and keep trying that Shadow Queen final boss battle and keep slugging through it. Or there's YouTube. And it's okay to know when to cut your losses. Like, for me, playing games, like, I don't, gain anything out of the pride of the challenge and the accomplishment. I want to experience the story, the world, the music. That's more valuable to me. It's why I don't play many games on hard mode. I'm okay with an easier mode on the first time around. If I want to play it a subsequent time, I can give it another go. But I think this was a game that really helped reinforce for me, like, yes, I had a great time experiencing it. I'm going to keep those with me forever, but I don't need to say I beat that final boss. Like you, like Matt, like others out there, I'm sure, that boss is a dick. And I'm okay with saying, you know what? I know when to cut my losses.
Yeah, I'm roughly the same way. I have a reason that I'm going to have to go ram my head against it again. And to be fair, I believe in myself to be able to do that after the experience I just had with Smasterpieces. Can't get worse than when you've already hit rock bottom with Earthbound. And so, I don't know, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, it's the unskippable cutscene. That boss would not be nearly as bad if it weren't for a really long, unskippable cutscene right before it.
It's really long.
That you have to watch every single time you try again. That's something that would be fixed in a remaster, I would hope.
Or a patch if it were at the time that allowed things like that.
Yeah, and so the fact that it's just unforgiving at the very end, and I don't know, it's a great game, and hopefully next time I play it, I don't stop at the final boss, and I do beat the game myself, and I don't know. We'll see if that ends up happening. But the fact that me and you are not the only people that have had this exact same experience, I just consider that final boss an unfortunate blight on an otherwise pretty perfect game, almost. Well, not perfect, but a pretty good game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'll, as I said, I'll be sending you my energy when that time comes, and I think everyone else out there will as well. So, to transition games, I like to talk about a fan cover, fan remix, whether it's on YouTube, OC Remix, what have you. This one I'd like to talk about a YouTuber who did a cover of Rogueport, and she did so on tenor sax. This is Sab Irene, S-A-B Irene, a tenor sax cover of Rogueport. I love how this sounds. I think you will too. Enjoy. We will be right back.
Let's take the tone way down.
Or just like to the other end of the seriousness spectrum.
Yeah, we're here now. We're going to switch gears to the farthest gear we could possibly switch to and talk about Until Dawn. It's never going to get as bad as Kirby's Epic Yarn into Devil May Cry 3, or it was Devil May Cry 3 into Kirby's Epic Yarn, but this is pretty close, I feel like.
I don't know, man. I still love Bloodborne and Katawa Shoujo.
That is also a pretty good one. But, that being said, let's jump right into it. Until Dawn was released as a PlayStation 4 exclusive on August 25th, 2015, and then it released in the PAL regions on the 26th and in the UK on the 28th of the same year. It never released in Japan. That doesn't fully surprise me, but it also kind of surprises me. It was developed by England-based studio Supermassive Games, not to be confused with Supergiant Games. Those are different people. They are a studio that had up to that point done things for other notable Sony-adjacent IPs, such as developing DLC for Little Big Planet 1 and 2. They also did Killzone HD. And they had done a bunch of party games before that, too. They had also made a Doctor Who game in 2012 called Doctor Who: The Eternity Clock, but it didn't really find any success. Apparently, it was supposed to be the first game in a new series, and then all the sequels got shelved when it did not do great.
Oops.
But Until Dawn, for anybody that does not know, is a game modeled to be like an interactive horror movie. It plays very similar to games from studios like Quantic Dream, Telltale Games, and Don't Nod, which we have talked about all three of those before, one of them last week. In fact, Heavy Rain is specifically mentioned as being an inspiration for this game.
So, when people talk about Heavy Rain and give it all sorts of crap, I mean, you cannot deny the influence that it provided for all these different interactive, narratives to come.
Mm-hmm. So the plot of the game begins in February of 2014 on the fictional Blackwood Mountain, which is located in Alberta, Canada, right along the Rocky Mountains. A group of friends are having a gathering at the Washington Family Mountain Lodge. When a prank goes wrong, twins Hannah and Beth Washington disappear under mysterious circumstances. On the first anniversary of said disappearance, their brother Josh Washington invites those friends back to the lodge for yet another get-together, hoping that it might help heal old wounds and assist everybody in the process of moving on. However, mysterious happenings begin to take place on the mountain as the group of young adults begin to find themselves being pursued by a masked psychopath, or two masked psychopaths, or something else.
Ooh.
So who is this masked killer? What is their goal? How are they connected to the disappearance of Hannah and Beth just 1 year earlier? And what is the mysterious and dark secret that Blackwood Mountain has been hiding? So this is where I ask, what are our experiences with Until Dawn?
Yeah, a game that I played probably pretty soon after it came out, around Halloween time for sure. So yeah, probably a couple months after. Waited till around Halloween of 2015. Played it probably within 2 to 3 nights. Really enjoyed it. I think I even streamed the first little bit of it, if I remember correctly. Very enjoyable game, and really is a good example of the butterfly effect, again, which we talked about in Life is Strange last week.
Mm-hmm.
So many different options on that narrative flowchart. I don't think it even gets to the extreme of something that would come later, like Detroit Become Human, but for the time, incredibly impressive. The motion capture technology, remarkable at the time.
Fantastic.
And I think it still holds up rather well. So many things to love about this game, and yet, when trying to remember what happened in my playthrough, I had difficulty remembering what happened. So many fates for so many different characters, and different tentpole moments throughout the game. But I mean, man, you're asking what do I remember about my playthrough? I mean, it took me some time to really go through and think of what happened in my adventure.
Meanwhile, I absolutely adore this game. I think it was my game of the year in 2015 by far.
Wow.
I remember that me and my roommate sat down to play it together for a while, which is one of the reasons why I'm talking about it today, which we'll get to the main reason, because Supermassive is releasing another game this week, so stick around and I might tell you which one that is. And it's a lot like Until Dawn. I don't know, it's a really fun game to play alongside somebody, first of all, and it's also just a fun game to watch. It's fun to watch other people play Until Dawn.
Yes, absolutely.
So, the bulk of Until Dawn's writing and effort is put into the characters the player can control throughout various parts of the game. There are 8 playable characters that the player cycles through depending on what scene they are playing. Each have their own personalities, each have their own individual storylines, and each have their own actor who provided both the facial capture and the voice. And there are some surprisingly big names on this list. I think the biggest name is Josh Washington, is played by Rami Malek, who is most known for Night at the Museum, Mr. Robot, and most recently he played Freddie Mercury in the film Bohemian Rhapsody.
I mean, let's reverse those roles. I don't think he's most well known for Night at the Museum.
Night at the Museum was apparently his first movie.
Yes, it was. But, I mean, certainly Oscar award-winning actor Rami Malek for Freddie Mercury and Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah, I mean, great standout role in Mr. Robot. He's the antagonist in the upcoming Bond film announced for April 2020. Is it No Way to Die or something like that? It just announced the title.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. But he's the antagonist, so his star is rising, and here he is in 2015 as Josh.
I'm pretty sure this is before Mr. Robot, which is the role that really, really put him on the map, I think.
Yes.
Sam Giddings is played by Hayden Panettiere, who is known for her roles as a kid in Remember the Titans. She was also most well known for her role in Heroes as the character Claire. And she's also the original voice of Kairi in the Kingdom Hearts series.
Does not play a cheerleader in this game, so can you save the cheerleader? I don't know.
That is the second time Kingdom Hearts has been mentioned. Stick around, there will be a third. Mike Monroe is played by Brett Dalton, who is most known for his role in the first few seasons of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Grant Ward.
And man, I feel like he was Ward like as that game came out, so it was like super eerie to be like, it's Ward.
Yeah, I believe those were happening at the same time. I think you're right. The cast also includes some smaller names such as Noah Fleiss as Chris Hartley, Galadriel Steinman as Ashley Brown, Nicole Bloom as Emily Davis, Jordan Fisher as Matt Taylor, and Megan Martin as Jessica Riley. I mentioned that I was going to say the words Kingdom Hearts again in this episode. Here we go. Fun fact. While the character was voiced by Brittany Snow in Kingdom Hearts 2, Megan Martin took over the role of Naminé in every game after that, meaning Until Dawn contains two separate actresses who once played a version of Kairi.
Yay!
And what other series could I say that about? These two people played different versions of this one character, even though they're two separate characters, and Kingdom Hearts is a mess, man.
If you play Kingdom Hearts, you know. If you don't, no, that's okay.
Yeah. So, there are also, when you talk about casting, the other one you gotta mention, there are short intercut scenes where a psychologist named Dr. Hill interacts directly with the player and analyzes their fears and decisions throughout the game, and this character is played by Peter Stormare, who has been in so much stuff that I would be here all day listing it all. Just go look up a picture of Peter Stormare if you don't know who we're talking about. You've seen him in something, I guarantee it.
Definitely a great character actor, for sure. Also, the best parts of the game, I think, when it comes to the motion capture and performance. Super eerie and very lifelike. Again, especially at the time. I'm sure it holds up well today because it's only been several years. Peter Stormare, I always associate with his role of Ghost in 22 Jump Street. The drug dealer with the goatee, and he gets in the helicopter at the end. The dad of the the secret villain in that movie. Fantastic movie, by the way. But I always think of him in that movie, and so I think that was like I had just seen that movie at the time or something like that. And again, totally different role for Peter Stormare in this game, but it's just like, oh yeah, mental connection there.
He's a very good character, and it's a fantastic performance. I most recently heard his voice in Castlevania, the anime on Netflix. He's in season 2, and he's very, very good in it. The big gimmick of Until Dawn, the hook, is that any of the characters can die multiple ways in any order, depending on the player's decision as that character when they're playing as that character. Some are harder to kill than others. Jessica and Matt stick out as ones that are really, really, really easy to get killed. Sam and Mike, I believe, are the hardest to kill. In fact, Sam has one spot where she can die in the entire game, and Mike might too, but they're the only ones with that. Everybody else can die at any time.
Oops. Sam died in my game.
Ooh. There might be more than one then. I might be misremembering that. Quote, a failed QTE or incorrect choice might not lead directly to a character's death, but could send characters down harder, more treacherous paths. If you don't know what a QTE is, we've mentioned them in the past. It stands for Quick Time Event, which is like a prompt shows up on screen and you have a limited amount of time to react to that prompt. Or something bad might happen. Every character also has their own personal struggles throughout the story, and the player's decisions as that character can change how the other characters react to them at different moments. For instance, Chris and Ashley both have crushes on each other, but they're both too scared to act on that. Jessica and Mike have only been dating for a short period of time, and are in the awkward phase of wanting to get more, let's say, intimate. Emily and Jessica are both at each other's throats because just a year prior, Mike was dating Emily, not Jessica, and Jessica and Emily were best friends. So the player's actions not only decide who's going to die and who's going to live, but they also decide, like, does Mike actually care about Jessica, or is he just trying to get into her pants? Will Chris and Ashley finally just tell each other how they feel? That kind of thing. Your decisions decide all of it. And it's just very, very cool and must have been a nightmare to make.
Oof, you're not kidding.
Speaking of, development of Until Dawn began in 2010 for the PlayStation 3, actually, under the creative direction of Will Biles. Supermassive had decided that they wanted to work on a game with more emphasis on narrative than the party game titles that they had previously developed. And the game was proposed as a horror game meant to resemble slasher films, but made to appeal to a younger audience, and also to be played exclusively with the PlayStation Move. Now, if you don't remember what that was the motion controller that was Sony's answer to the success of the Wii.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up, when it started, because the name Until Dawn had been around PlayStation circles for a long time. It kind of reminds me of, not nearly as long, but at Gamescom recently, the game Erica finally came out on PlayStation 4. And it's like, oh, that had been announced a while ago as a PlayLink game, and finally it's out, and they didn't really tie it too much to PlayLink, though I think you need a second screen controller for the touchscreen mechanics there. But it's the same kind of thing where that name's been out there for a while, and it takes a long time in development.
So they brought in writers Larry Fessenden and Graham Resnick to write the game's script, which apparently, by the time it was done, the final script for the game was nearly 10,000 pages long. And Fessenden actually ended up playing a character in the game. He plays the Stranger.
Oh, interesting.
So that's kind of cool. And also, originally, the game was meant to be played from a first-person perspective, with the Move controller being used to point a flashlight as well as interact with objects and obstacles and stuff like that during puzzle-solving segments, which I personally think that this phase of the game's development, it didn't go away completely, because I think they just turned it into the psychologist segments, personally, because that fits, I think. When this version of the game was shown off at Gamescom in 2012, there was an enthusiastic response, mostly due to the general tone being considered fresh compared to the other Move games at the time, but people had a problem with the fact that it was Move exclusive, because nobody wanted to buy the Move. Problem that Sony had in spades at that time. So shortly after this presentation and this feedback, Biles was messing with the debug camera, apparently, and realized that the game had a lot more potential when played from a third-person perspective. It gave it a more cinematic feeling, and with this in mind, they scrapped the Move exclusivity, which was probably a really good idea. Development was then moved to the PlayStation 4, and the game began to take on more adult themes and content, which is, I'm surprised I didn't get more of a response when I said that, started as a game aimed at a younger audience, because what?
I guess I was wondering, like, how young are we talking about? Because I think this game can still appeal to teens. Granted, mature rating, but like it's a teen, horror slasher environment. So, but I mean, yeah, if you meant like for, maybe kids, I don't know.
I have no idea what age they actually meant. It just says for a younger audience, but it's weird. But yeah, it was given more adult themes and content, which I think was, again, a very good idea, because you were going to make a slasher movie without that? Come on. Eventually, the third person perspective also sort of evolved into the fixed camera perspective used in early titles in the Resident Evil franchise, which I also think gives it a more cinematic feeling, makes it feel more like a movie. The whole game is not played like that, but the parts that are definitely feel like you're watching a film. And like you said earlier, the butterfly effect idea was also a very big part of the game's development philosophy, heavily leaning on the idea that every choice the player makes, no matter how seemingly small, could affect something else down the line. For instance, my favorite example of this is that early in the game, Sam and Josh are working to turn on the water heater, and during the sequence, Sam can look at a baseball bat and go, "Oh man, this sure is a cool baseball bat." And Josh will go, "Yeah, it's Dad's, haha," and then move it to a different spot. And then later, when Sam is being chased by the psycho in the basement, that bat's not in that location. But if she didn't interact with the bat, it is sitting against that wall, and she can use it to swing at the psycho, making that part just a little bit easier. And that's just a small decision that you don't even recognize as that might screw me later. They apparently developed specific software just to record every game choice the player has made. And apparently this whole aspect made the game a nightmare to ever change anything in, ever. Because anytime they wanted to change anything about the narrative, they would have to go and observe every single possible point of impact that one tiny thing could have later in the story.
Gosh, what a mess. And just, all the debugging that must have gone on. It's amazing that this game was made.
To avoid having to do full rewrites, apparently they just decided once motion capture and shooting started, they were like, all right, this is how the game goes now. And they decided they were just going to tweak the pacing and direction and nothing else. Leave everything else alone. The script stays the same. Overall, the game's goal, according to Biles, was to take horror back to the roots of horror, saying that unlike other horror games at the time, Until Dawn tried to emphasize tension rather than action, which is something that a lot of horror games nowadays forget. It's getting better with things like Resident Evil 7, and there was some other horror game, Resident Evil 2, I guess.
Some of these indie ones like Outlast, maybe?
Yeah, Outlast is a good example. Unfortunately, the indie sphere is also wrought with Five Nights at Freddy's, which, to be fair, Five Nights at Freddy's got this. They understood this. That game is tension the game.
They just beat it into the ground is all.
Yeah, and then every other person that saw Five Nights at Freddy's said, "So the secret is jump scares. I got it now." And no, you missed the point. It went over your head. I personally do think that at least the first two Five Nights at Freddy's are masterfully designed games that I can't play because I have actual anxiety attacks if I do. But yeah, I agree with them that at the time, video games had a bit of horror games specifically had a bit of a problem with the monster has to be there and you gotta fight it and the monster's gotta look scary. And sometimes it's what you don't see that's even scarier than what you do. Rest in peace, Silent Hills. Apparently they used galvanic skin response tests, which I guess is something to do with observing muscle contractions? I couldn't find exactly what it was. The Wikipedia link just led to the Wikipedia article for galvanism, which is like you shock a dead frog and its legs move up. Weird. But they apparently used this kind of test to measure fear levels of playtesters as they played so they could sort of mess with the levels there.
And it kind of makes sense because like there are certain parts of the game where it's like, you know, the PlayStation camera sees the sensor bar on the controller and it's like, don't move.
Don't move.
Yeah, like you better not move. Like, you know, your tension's going to get to you. And so like, I think they play those moments really well.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most of the time I don't like the don't move prompts because sometimes they just don't work. Most of the time they're pretty good, but sometimes like I was sitting perfectly still and it acted like I threw my controller across the room. Oh, that character's dead now. That sucks.
Pretty sure that's how I had Sam die.
Much like a lot of other games in this genre, there are no game over screens in Until Dawn. And this builds into the whole idea of they wanted it to rely on tension more than anything else because the game cannot be manually saved. Ever. It autosaves and it only autosaves and it's autosaving constantly. If somebody dies, you just get to live with that. The game does not end when a character dies. The game does not end until every character dies. So, yeah, if a character dies, you gotta live with it and just move on. Or you make a decision you don't like, you gotta live with it and just move on. It's actually like the opposite of Life is Strange in a lot of ways, where it's like, I don't like how that choice worked out. I better rewind that and try it again. No, there ain't no rewinding it Until Dawn.
Deal with it.
And apparently a lot of reviewers kind of didn't like that. They got why it was there, but they felt that it felt too punitive, which, get over it. Just replay again. They didn't want you reloading the save over and over again to save your favorite character. That would have killed the flow of the game really hard. So upon release, Until Dawn was received fairly well, with a Metacritic score that is currently sitting at 79 out of 100. So it's not universally beloved, but it's not hated either. The game also won Best Original Property at the British Academy Games Awards, which is the first time I've ever heard of those. But it had been nominated for a handful of other awards, including Best Narrative at the Game Awards. And Brett Dalton was also nominated for some award. I don't remember what it was because it was something I'd never heard of, but he was the only actor nominated for his performance in the game. Not that he didn't deserve it. He does fantastic in the game, but so does everybody else.
British Academy Game Awards, by the way, BAFTAs.
The BAFTA. I've never heard of it. The fucking BAFTAs. In its first week, it was the second best-selling game in the UK, and held 7th best-selling game in the United States. Most of its success seems to have come from sites like YouTube and Twitch, as, like I mentioned earlier, game's really fun to watch. And every game, like, every playthrough that you watch is going to be kind of different. They might make different decisions. They might fail in different ways. There are so many different branching paths that this game could have. And it's just a really fun game to watch. Apparently, Shuhei Yoshida, who is the president of Sony Computer Entertainment Worldwide Studios, referred to Until Dawn as a sleeper hit. And as for like continuations, the game did get a VR spin-off called Until Dawn Rush of Blood in 2016. It's an arcade shooter with horror themes.
It was one of the better PlayStation VR launch games, but in the long run, like, yeah, not great.
That's what I hear. It also got a VR sequel in 2018 called The Inpatient. I remember hearing about this game coming out and also hearing that it's not great.
Same.
Which was unfortunate, but what can you do? But Supermassive has not stopped, though, despite these two lukewarm releases. The main reason that I'm bringing Until Dawn this week is because their next game, in the Until Dawn vein, is coming out this week. It is the first release of an anthology game series that they are trying out. They say they're going to try and release one every 6 months, which is very, very, like, That's a daring plan. We'll see if it works out.
Yeah, if they do one per year, I think they'll be fine. But yeah, the Dark Pictures anthology.
Yeah, Dark Pictures anthology, specifically the Dark Pictures Man of Medan. It comes out on Friday, August 30th. Yes, that is this Friday, if you're listening to this on day of release. And it's about people stuck on a haunted ship. I saw some stuff about it at E3, but didn't have time to play it. So take that as you will. I'm certainly very excited for it. It's doing some very interesting stuff with multiplayer, playing with other people, which, like I said, Until Dawn was already really fun to play with my roommate in tow. And I think that these different multiplayer modes are going to make it even more interesting. So I'm definitely going to be picking that up on Friday.
I am tempted, certainly, but I've got a bunch of other games to play. Like I got to play Erica, Telling Lies, the new game from Sam Barlow, her story. That's out basically when we're recording, like the week before the 30th here. I got to finish Wolfenstein Youngblood. My brother and I are going to get to Gears of War 5 at the start of September. So already a very busy time for games.
Yeah, I still got to finish Fire Emblem. I'm still on my first run of Fire Emblem of 4. And also Astral Chain comes out the same day.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
This is one of those games that, like, I'm going to pick it up because me and my roommate are going to have a good time with it. We don't necessarily have to play it now, but I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the music of Until Dawn, it is done by one Jason Graves. And I can't find anything on the history of this man. Plenty of stuff on his work, because this man has been in the video game industry for 15 years doing music. But I can't find anything on like his early life or how he got in. I did find that he is a classically trained composer and he is mainly a percussionist himself, but that's really it. And this is from his own biography on his website.
Huh.
So, and his Wikipedia article, completely worthless outside of listing what games he's worked on, unfortunately. So maybe one day we'll talk to him. Who knows? It's a possibility, I guess. But he's been doing music since 2005. His first game was Rise of the Kasai for the PlayStation 2 in 2005. He has also done music for Gauntlet, Seven Sorrows, a ton of Transformers and Star Trek licensed games, just like a bunch of them. He's the main composer for the Dead Space franchise. He did Command and Conquer 4, Alpha Protocol, Fear 3. He was the main composer on the Tomb Raider reboot in 2013. He did the music for the Virgil's Downfall DLC of DMC Devil May Cry, Murdered Soul Suspect, Evolve, The Order 1886, Far Cry Primal, Lawbreakers, Moss, and he also has come back to do the music for the Dark Pictures Man of Medan. Like, that's a hell of a portfolio, and I can't find any information on the man.
That's pretty amazing. We'd love to talk to you, Jason.
If you're listening, call me. Don't call me, email me. That would be less creepy. But, you know, you do you. As for specific information on the score of Until Dawn, the scoring process lasted for 1 year, according to Graves. Interestingly enough, beginning in 2011, which, if you'll remember, would have been before the game had changed directions. He apparently had a 3-hour conversation with Barney Pratt, who served as the game's audio director, specifically to try and get a clear idea of the direction they wanted the soundtrack to go. The soundtrack is reactive, meaning that the music gets louder as the player approaches a threat, which works wonders in a game like Until Dawn. And by the end of development, the soundtrack for the game apparently ended up around 15 hours long. Obviously, the officially released soundtrack is not 15 hours long, but that was a number I had to include on these notes.
It's always when we talk about the 3D audio experience, in a way, all distilled to 2D for a soundtrack. Just a smattering of the best selections of those cues.
Mm-hmm. The soundtrack also apparently makes use of a goat hoof shaker, which I assume is just a shaker made out of goat hoof. That seems right to me.
Sure.
This was apparently used to match the mountain setting of the game, and Graves also says that he made a lot of use of synthesizers as his way of paying homage to one of the kings of horror film, John Carpenter himself. Which, as a big fan of the Halloween franchise, yeah, John Carpenter's some good stuff, baby.
Yeah, I get it.
So let's get in to the 5 critical tracks of Until Dawn, and there is no better place to start than Oh Death. This is the opening credits theme of Until Dawn, and right off the bat, it's telling you this is the type of game you are playing. You are playing a game where death is a central theme of the game. It is performed by Amy Van Rokel, and just those lyrics, man. Apparently this is a folk song from somewhere. I think from like Celtic, maybe. I'm not entirely sure on where it comes from. I've heard different things, but I do know for sure that Graves did not write this. Neither did Van Rokel. This is a folk song that was adapted to be in this game. But boy, what a song it is.
It's the one I remember from the game. To me, a lot of the melodies while playing it just like did a super great job of just amplifying the tension, but like I couldn't, pick up certain themes or any leitmotifs going on, but this being right at the beginning at the opening credits and a vocal theme that is just striking. Yes, certainly remember this one.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of not being able to pick up like any leitmotifs or anything like that, I must unfortunately admit that I'm not 100% sure where most of this music plays, because when you play Until Dawn, you're a little preoccupied. And I tried to go look into as much as I could. I would give like guesses as to where the songs could be playing. I have pretty good ideas for most of them, but one that I don't really have that good an idea of where it plays is our second track, What Could Possibly Go Wrong? And no, we're not talking about Bubsy, but we are talking about some horror music, baby. This is horror music. There's an opening bit where it's a lot calmer when it starts, but then it just keeps building and building and building to the point where it's this intensity that you hear in the clip, and that's how you know, like, you are in danger. It is time to move now. It's just a fantastic piece that just moves flawlessly from tension to panic. But I do not for the life of me know where this song plays in the game.
If you want a good example of like, these are long tracks, might want to listen to them because they have a whole range of sounds here. Like the Until Dawn soundtrack is a really good example. Like lots of 6-minute plus tracks on here, and this is certainly an example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's like the beginning with like the opening, sequence of with Hannah and Beth. I don't know. Hard to say.
Could be. I'm not sure. I couldn't find it when I tried to look, but I have a pretty good idea where this next one plays, because our next track is Run or Hide. far as I can tell, this is the music that plays when Sam is running away from the psycho in the basement. As far as I can tell, it's kind of hard to hear when you go look it up on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure.
And yeah, if it's as dynamic as the soundtrack claims to be, it probably would be pretty tough.
Yeah, that's another thing that makes it very hard to figure out where these songs play, because some of them play in multiple places, and there's a good chance that during your playthrough, you don't even hear certain parts of the song. It just makes it more interesting to listen to, but kind of hard to talk about. That's on me, I guess. I think that this scene is one of the more memorable sequences in the game. I believe this was the first one they showed off.
I believe so too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When they announced the game in the current form that it was. I don't remember where it was. I want to say it was like E3 2013 or 14, but it was Sam running away from the psycho. And that was a pretty good part to show off, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say it would be a little while before the game came out after that, but it certainly piqued a lot of people's interests. And the piece is just very good. It's chasey, obviously. It should be. I don't know what else to say about it other than, again, that's just some good horror music. But a bit of a change of gears. Our next piece is Mike and Jessica. As far as I'm aware, and as far as I could tell, this song plays when playing as Mike, and probably as Jessica too. Fun fact, I've never seen any of the Jessica scenes, because Jessica died in my playthrough very quickly, before I would have had a chance to play as her. But most people, I think that's the thing with most people, because again, Jessica's one of the easier characters to die, to get killed. It's basically like, you pick the wrong route to get to her, and then you miss even one of the QuickTime events, and she's dead. So I've never seen any of the Jessica scenes. When I replay it, I'm going to make it my goal to try and get everybody to survive so I can see all the scenes. But I imagine, and I'm pretty sure, that this music plays when Mike is like traipsing around the old sanatorium on the mountain. And for the most part, Mike's sections are a little more calmer than the things that the people in the lodge are going through, because he's just sort of exploring and he's learning about this tragedy that happened 60 years ago.
Yes.
And he's trying to find the person that he believes is responsible for Jessica's death, or her assumed death if she survived. And so this song reflects that rather well, and it's just a very good piece. And again, I'm pretty sure there are parts of this song that ramp it up a little bit more, like every other part of the song. But this calm bit that's in the clip, I think, is the most memorable part to me.
Piano, man.
Yeah. Always with the piano. Always with the piano here. Eventually, like, somebody's going to FedEx me a grand piano, and I'm not going to be able to get it. But don't do that. Nobody can afford that. Don't do that, though. As for our final track, fittingly enough, it is Final Confrontation.
Okay, I think we can probably assume spoilers.
Spoilers in this one. From here on out, we're going to just go ahead and assume some spoilers, because I actually can't talk about this sequence without revealing the twist. So I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Turns out the masked psychopaths aren't the problem. It's monsters. It's the Wendigo.
Ooh, and they're creepy.
they're really creepy, and the way they're animated, they're like really jittery, and they seem like they are like specifically animated as at a lower frame rate than everything else in the game, like purposely so to look wrong and off. I love it. They're so good. I had only heard of the Wendigo once before this, and certainly never in this kind of context. This song plays during the final scene of the game, where all of the people that have survived up until now are gathered in the living room of the lodge as they all slowly try and back out without alerting the 3 Wendigo that are in the room with them. And it's so tense. It's so tense. And ideally, your goal is to get everybody out, and then Sam is the last person to get out, flips the light switch, and blows up the cabin because of a gas leak that the Wendigo had caused earlier in the scene. And it's just, there's so much tension, and this song does it so well. There's just so much build up. It gets more and more terrifying as it goes on, because you screw up in this scene, and the character that you're playing as when you screw up dies. This is, I believe, the only scene where Sam can die.
And that's where Sam died for me. So, yep, you're right.
Probably Mike as well. I believe this is the only scene where both of those people can die.
See, I want to say my Sam got hunted down, and like Mike used it as the opportunity to get out and set the cabin ablaze. So I think Mike lived, but Sam was hunted.
I have one friend that like didn't realize that they were supposed to wait to flip the switch, and so they had Sam do it immediately.
Oops.
And killed everybody in the cabin.
Oh no.
So they made it with most people alive to the very end, and then accidentally killed everybody immediately.
Well, I mean, he saved the cheerleader, so
them telling me that story was the best thing I've ever heard. I would be so sad, because like, you can't be mad at the game for that. You did it.
Yep.
But and that's, I think that really drives into one of the other goals they had with this game, apparently, that I didn't mention earlier. One of the main design philosophies they had was like, it's a horror movie where you don't get to yell at the stupid teenagers for doing stupid things, because you did that. You did that stupid thing. It was your decision. Just such a good sequence. Oh, such a good sequence.
And the music is so tense. It's just fantastic. You're right. Like it. Perfect cap on this list.
Yeah, I love it. As for tracks on the cutting room floor, the first one I have is Icicle Elegy. This apparently plays while the stranger, who is a man who has been living in the local abandoned sanatorium, who makes his living hunting the Wendigos, he is telling his story and about how the mountain belongs to the Wendigos. Sure, I guess that's just what the YouTube comments told me. But it's so much different from everything else on this list. And it's so good. Like, it's this nice violin piece. I love it. It's very good. And I also have You Go, Girl. The only information I could find about where this song plays is it plays during an Ashley segment, apparently. Which one? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Literally the only thing that I heard was it plays during an Ashley segment during this chapter. And thanks for the detailed description. but it's kind of a triumphant piece almost, and it's just kind of cool. What other reason do I need to mention it?
I don't have any critical tracks on this one because, yeah, the soundtrack, while great, it's a great one. But again, like as I mentioned, you're focused on playing. Don't have any ones that really stand out as like, oh, gotta mention it. But I think you did a really great job kind of encapsulating the music in this one here. So nice job.
I tried. This is a really hard one to talk about for multiple reasons. But what will I never forget about Until Dawn? I'll never forget that I have to replay it probably sometime in October, and I want to stream it too. I've never done that. And that sounds like a lot of fun. Something that I really enjoy about this game is it kind of encourages you to play every character differently. In my opinion, if you have never played Until Dawn and you go to play it after this episode, the way you should play Until Dawn is don't make your decisions based on what would you do. Make your decisions based on what would Mike do? What would Chris do? What would Sam do? Like, try to think of what the character themselves would do in this situation, in your opinion. And what you think Sam would do in that situation might be different from what I think Sam would do in that situation. And that's one of the reasons why this game is so damn interesting. I love it.
So many possibilities. I think it's only fair for us to discuss what we remember happening to our characters.
I believe, and again, it's been years since I played, but I'm pretty sure that we lost Jessica, Matt, and Josh.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure on my game. I feel like characters like Josh, Matt, Emily, they could have died. I could have had a really, really bad playthrough, and I just don't remember it that well. But I do remember 3 characters definitely dying. Ashley died for me. She was exploring the caves, and I opened a trap door, and surprise, Wendigo.
Ooh,
done.
Boy.
And like that was the first death I think that I had, and so like that shocked me. It was like, ooh, like that really.
I think I remember where that trapdoor is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly comes out of nowhere if you stumble upon it. I had Jessica pulled through a window, glass window in the cabin. Definitely had that happen. And then, like I mentioned, Sam at the end. So it could have been very well that I know Mike survived. It could have been that he was the only one that survived in my playthrough. I could have done a terrible job. But I think you're right. It's a game I absolutely have to go back and replay and experience once again.
It's probably among my favorite games on the PS4. And that's saying something because there are a lot of good games on the PS4. It's one of the most interesting games on the PS4, I think.
And you can go get it for cheap. It's very easy to find, even digitally.
If you've never played Until Dawn and you have a PS4, you are actually missing out. Unless you don't like horror stuff, which, understandable.
Look, I don't like horror stuff, and it's still a fantastic game. Go play it. Just go play it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it wholeheartedly.
Especially if you love these, Telltale and Don't Nod and Quantic Dream. If you like those kind of games, like you gotta see how the narrative webs out.
Mm-hmm. I personally, even though they said it was an inspiration, I think I said this during the episode we talked about it too. Until Dawn is the game that Heavy Rain wishes it was.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. So, dark secrets are abound. You get some spooks. It's a fun week here on Original Soundchat. Great games to talk about, of course, but I mean, gosh, even better soundtracks. I mean, my goodness, great ones to talk about. So that will do it for this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at Pete Speakeasy. Joe is over at The Dobaga. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel or on rhymeswithasia.com. And you want that podcast version. That's over on Anonymous Dinosaur and on dino.squarespace.com. But go to podcast storefronts all around the globe, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Take it with you on runs, in your car, at work. Listen to conversations about great video game soundtracks, and we won't tell your boss, so don't worry about that. Then you can interact with us on social media at Soundchat OST for feedback on how we're doing with these episodes, suggestions on games you'd like us to cover. Anything on that updated Spotify playlist this week, Joe?
Nope. Not a single thing.
No.
Sadly, I kind of hoped that Until Dawn would be, because a lot of other Jason Graves stuff is on Spotify, but Until Dawn is not among that list. And obviously, Thousand Year Door, Nintendo game. There was never any hope of that anyways.
It doesn't even have an official soundtrack release. I mean, it's one of those, games ripped from GameCube, not with official titles. So yeah, not a surprise. What are we talking about next week, though?
I'm talking about Nick Arundel.
Ooh, and I will be talking about Jesper Kid. So yeah, great games, of course, to talk about with those two. Let's play us out, Joe.
I am using the same artist that I actually used back in Celeste, which was just like 2-3 episodes ago. Lil Tommy J, like I mentioned during the Celeste episode, he does music that is like made out of sound effects from the game. No remixes of this game, who could have guessed? But he did do an Until Dawn song, so I think it's kind of catchy and pretty good. So please enjoy that.
Thank you so much for listening to us on Original Soundchat this week. We'll see you next time. Take care.
This